Bonsoir and gracias a la misericordia to all my mystics. I hope that you're doing well. So today's video, I don't know if this is going to be the permanent name, but it's going to be called Stepping Stones on the Path, Don't Get Stuck. So before I get into that, if you've been learning from the channel, if you're enjoying it, if you want to be the first to know when things come out, go ahead and click subscribe. If you like the video or you don't like the video, we're going to let you go ahead and click thumbs up. So go ahead and do that. And as well, a lot of people have been asking me how, and many people have been already sending us donations to do more lives and keep this party popping, right? And you can do so via Cash App, cash symbol, right? $ Hector Salva, or help at mysticalwork.com via PayPal. So today's topic is called Stepping Stones Don't Get Stuck on the Path. Okay? And what I'm saying with this video is this, and this we see it all the time, over and over and over and over and over. Okay. For sometimes, some people, depending on where you're at, depending on who you're exposed to, depending on who you meet, there are times when many people first become involved in spirituality, and they start by practicing a certain tradition, right? But later on come to find out that they need to move over here, or that this wasn't exactly the proper fit. And sometimes this may take 2 or 3 steps. And because someone is still in the path of development, right? With each step, sometimes a person can overly identify with it, meaning they get stuck, right? So I want you to think of that, imagine Jerry, and Jerry is trying to go from point A to point Z. And between point A and point Z, there are various little stepping stones, right? There are times where what happens is Jerry jumps from A to B. And then he's like, B is it, because he gets convinced that B is the end of the line. That's where he is supposed to be. But he couldn't see that in reality, B was just a stepping stone. It was a stepping stone to get to C, and so on. Okay? Now, unfortunately for some people, there's many stepping stones between A and Z, because on each point, they may often get stuck, right? Or they may not let go of the stepping stone, the last stepping stone. So then they get caught in between 2 stepping stones, and then they can't fully get on the second one, so then they can't move on to the third. Sometimes you might get called into a specific spirituality or tradition because that's all that's in your environment. And so in your environment, the only way that the spirits have to get a hold of you is to use what it has in your environment, what it has available. Spirits use what's available, right? And so there are times where we've met, and we know tons of people who, let's say, they were meant to be practicing 21 divisions or Sanse, but they started off in Santeria because that's what they were exposed to. And they got involved, and somewhere along the line, they got stuck, right? Whereas Santeria, in that case, was meant to be a stepping stone for them to move further. And depending on how stuck they got on that stone, sometimes they might have actually taken a whole bunch of initiations and made a whole bunch of obligations and commitments. I actually tell you the story of someone that we had. We're going to call him Fred. And what happened was when he got to me, he belonged in the 21 divisions, right? So when he got to me, by the time he got to me, he had already received various initiations in Santeria. He had already received an initiation in Palo Mayombe. And he had already received Espiritismo misas. Okay? And in each step of the way, it helped him some, but eventually he hit another wall. He hit another brick wall and things weren't moving forward, and in some cases might have started moving backwards because things were kind of starting to rot because it was time for him to move on. And by the time he got to me, he had basically 3 or 4 smaller initiations in Santeria. He wasn't a Santero yet. He had initiated, had gotten the Ganga and got initiated into Palo. And he had gotten his misas. So what it came to be was that what he was really meant to be, his real home practice, spiritual home, where he was meant to be, was the 21 divisions. And these were stepping stones on his path in order for him to get there. Right? And then when he did get here, he little by little, basically, he let that stuff go because he wasn't meant to be holding on to it and it was actually causing him harm. Immediately when he let it go, right? And he also stopped identifying himself as a palero because that's what he was telling people, right? That's what he was being known as. Everything bloomed, everything blossomed, everything changed like really quick, right? He brought everything for us to like break them down and for us to like give everything its proper thanks for bringing him along the path and then get him moving forward, right? However, there are other cases, right? As in the case of Lou, right? Where when he came here, he already had certain Santeria initiations, but he wasn't meant to let those go. Although those were stepping stones for him to end up in Sanse, right? Although those were stepping stones for him to end up in Sanse, they were still basically with him. There were still tools that he needed to continue his further growth as he continued down the path. They weren't something that was necessarily at that stage any longer holding him back, but rather they were truly integrated empowerments that were meant to stay there and be with him as part of his growth, right? So there are times where people end up in various traditions and aren't meant to stay there, and sometimes they feel obligated to stay there, sometimes they feel bad, but you have to really go to someone who knows what they're doing so that they could properly diagnose you and so that they could tell you what you're supposed to do with these things. Because if you're coming to that point where you've hit a wall and things are actually going backwards instead of progressing, they're going backwards or they're getting worse, right? Or maybe you know you're not meant to be there. Or maybe you know that that was meant for some time, but now you're meant to move to the next step and you don't know where, right? Or you're only doing things out of a feeling of obligation. These are all things that you're going to want to contact, right? A spiritual master that can really guide you properly on the path in order to find out what you're to do and whether or not it's really for you to move on, or maybe that really is what you should be practicing and it's not a stepping stone. It's where you belong, but maybe there's other things that are going on or missing or just basically not balanced out that are causing it so that that's happening to you. So there's a variety of reasons those things could be happening to you. But this video is about that For many people, especially if you didn't grow up around these things, your family didn't practice these spiritualities, okay, many times you might find yourself having accumulated certain stepping stones on the path, but they were meant to be stepping stones, and you're getting stuck. And you're getting stuck because you're holding on to them, or you think you're meant to be there, or you're there, and it was meant to just help you along the way. All right. So I hope that makes tons of sense for all of you. Keep the faith today and always. And remember that it's not a bad thing. You know, if there's growth, there's growth. So it's not a bad thing that you're growing and evolving as a person. So keep the faith today and always. Go ahead, click like and subscribe, and we'll see you soon.